Hello everyone, happy Tuesday. It's time for another episode of Tuesday Live at 5. This is Lena Gersa. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Cambridge, Ontario, Canada. And today I am super excited to share with you these 3 cards made using the In the Pines bundle from the Stampin' Up! August-December mini catalog. Now this bundle is another one that is easily missed. It is kind of tucked away towards the back of the catalog, and it is not part of a product suite, which makes it easy to overlook. Now, this bundle is not only appropriate for the holidays, it is awesome to do masculine cards or any kind of birthday card, Father's Day, throughout the whole year. Now, this is the bundle that includes the stamp set, which has evergreen tree images, as well as some sentiments and a great little speckle image. Love those. And then we also have the coordinating dies. And as is the case with pretty much all of our die sets, we have dies that cut out stamped images, so they correspond to the stamped images in the stamp set. But then we also have dies that cut shapes. This one cuts a peekaboo window. We're going to use that on our card in just a few minutes. These two die cut trees, and then we have these ones that cut snowdrifts or mountains or hills or whatever you can dream up. So that is the bundle. Now, as I mentioned, it is kind of hidden in the catalog. It's way towards, well, it's not really towards the back. I guess it's in the middle, on page 43 of the catalog. It seems like it's at the back because so many product suites come at the front. Now, this bundle retails for $70 here in Canada, and as I said, includes the stamp set and the dies. Okay, so we are going to make these 3 cards today. I kind of went with a fairly simple, little bit stepped up and elegant, and then I designed a fun fold to share with you. So we're going to start with simple. And before we get too far in, I'm just going to check to see who is watching with me here. Just going to refresh my page here on my iPad so I can see who's watching. It's always good to know that you're not talking to yourself when you're doing these live videos. Let's just pull that up and see who is here. Oh, we got lots of people here. We've got Louise and Laura and Deb and Sue and Gail. All right, Heather's here. All right, we got lots of people. Okay, so we're going to start with this one. I wanted to do something fairly simple that could easily be mass produced for holiday cards. And I love this color combo. First of all, this plaid particular pattern in the Plaid Tidings DSP pack has caught my eye, and I've kind of been hoarding it. I haven't used it yet because I really like it and I wanted just the right project. And I think this is it. I love the combination. This is shaded spruce and pretty peacock, and then I added the real red, and isn't that a fun combo for Christmas? I just love it. So I'm going to show you a couple of cool things about this die set. So we're going to start with a piece of the Plaid Tidings DSP. Oh, hello, Stephanie from Texas. Hi, Julie. Hi, Claire. Now, this DSP is cut to 4 by 5¼ inches. And then we are going to need this die from the die set. So this one actually is going to cut out the shape of the tree, but it's not actually going to cut a tree, just the shape. Okay, so we are going to use our Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine and the brand new, fresh out of the box, magnetic plate. Now, I have to give you a little public service announcement. So first of all, several people had asked me if the new self-healing magnetic plate could be used with the Big Shot. So the first thing I did when I pulled it out of the box was try it in my Big Shot, and lo and behold, it works. So your sandwich, when you are using it with the Big Shot, is going to be your standard platform, then your thin die adapter, then your self-healing magnetic plate, your die, your cardstock, and then another cutting plate on top. Okay, and that's how you'll run it through the Big Shot. Now, we're going to use it on the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And now here's my very important public service announcement in addition to the Big Shot piece. Okay, so the side that has the number printed on it is your actual cutting surface. Don't do what I did and cut on the back side. I have a lovely label shape cut into the back of my magnet on my brand new magnetic plate, but that's okay. Nobody will see it. You won't tell anybody. This is the side that is the self-healing plate. Okay? All right. So to create our sandwich for this, we are going to start with our platform. That's number 1. And then we're going to use number 5. Oh, no, we're not. I lied. Number 1, then number 2, then number 5, which is the self-healing mats. And then we're going to use our die. So let me just grab my cardstock or my DSP. So we're going to lay our DSP on to our magnetic plate, and you're going to see how that is just going to cling. Now, it's not quite as strong an adhesion as with the magnetic platform, the Big Shot magnetic platform. However, the entire surface, as you can see on the back side of this, the entire surface is magnet, so you're not going to have that jumping die problem that we had with the Big Shot magnetic. So I'm going to position this. Now this is going to be hard to do because I'm looking at it sideways. I'm hoping this is relatively straight. You guys can tell me if it's really off, but it looks kind of straight to me. So I've got my die, and then I'm going to put one cutting plate on top, and we're going to roll her on through. And we will see how this die works. So you'll see, oh, look at all those pieces just stuck perfectly. Okay, so that is what we get. We get the window of the tree cut out. All my bits stuck to my self-healing mat, so I can just push those off into my little trash bin here. And we're good to go. All right. So we're going to set this aside because we're going to use it again later on. So I'm going to take these out so I can fold up my sides and get it out of the way. All right. So I'll get that guy out of the way for now. And we're going to bring back our piece that we die cut. And we have here just a scrap of Whisper White cardstock. This is what? 2 1/4 by 4. It really just needs to be a big enough scrap that will cover that die cut window. Okay, so I'm just going to flip my DSP over. I'm going to add a little bit of tape sort of around the edges of my tree. I'm not worrying about gluing the actual tree. It's going to be stuck down enough when I add all my other elements to my card here. So we're just going to pop that on there, and then we have that beautiful window. Okay, all right, next we have a piece of Whisper White cardstock that has been die cut using one of those edge dies to cut the decorative edge, and then I've embossed it using the Winter Snow embossing folder. Okay, so we've got snowflakes on the bottom. So that is just going to get adhered to the bottom of my piece of DSP there, just like that. So we'll go ahead and add a bit of tape to that. Hi, Krista. Hi, Wendy. Oh, Louise, the only thing you have is the magnetic plate. Well, I think you're going to like the magnetic plate. I quite like it from the very little I have used it because, like I said, it's fresh out of the box. But I will have a better review of it next week once I've actually used it a little bit more. All right, so there we have our foundation of our card. Then we are going to add a little bit of this gorgeous real red braided linen trim. So I'm going to just adhere one end of the trim to a glue dot and just wrap the end and stick it down like that. And then I'm going to trim off that excess because that excess I'm going to use to tie my bow in a few minutes. This was just a scrap. It was the end of a roll, and I had just enough, I think, I hope, to do what I want to do on this card. All right, so there is my trim. Now we're going to layer that on a real red piece of cardstock. I wanted, ooh, that's too wide. We're going to have to trim that one down. I wanted just a narrow little border to bring out the red in the ribbon. So I'm going to grab my trimmer because I clearly miscut that. It should be 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. So I'm just going to put this in my trimmer to 4 1/8 and trim off that little bit. And then we'll double check that. Well, that looks a whole lot better. All right, so we'll get that out of the way and we can go ahead and adhere that. So again, I'm just going to use a little bit of seal. You can use whatever adhesive makes you happy. Seal is my best friend. Second only maybe to Seal Plus. All right, so this is going to have just a narrow little 1/16 of an inch border all the way around. So we'll just pop that on there like that. Okay, and I just love the way the Pretty Peacock and the Shaded Spruce work with the real red. I just love that combination. All right, now we're ready to glue this onto our card base. So our card base is 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, scored in the middle at 4 1/4. So we're just going to fold that in half along our score line. This is Pretty Peacock cardstock, coordinates with the DSP, and then that is going to get glued on to the front of our cards. We'll just add a little bit of adhesive here, and we're going to pop that on just like that. Okay. All right. Now we're going to do a little bit of stamping. Not a lot of stamping on this one. It's really only the sentiment that we're stamping. So this Season's Greeting sentiment is from the In the Pine stamp set. It's one of the 2 sentiments that comes with the set. And I have here my Pretty Peacock ink. So I'm going to ink that up. Now this little white label is die cut using the Stitched Rectangles dies. Okay. So I'm going to attempt, again, heavy on the attempt, because one never really knows what's going to happen when one's not looking directly down. Let's just cross our fingers, say a little prayer. Not bad. The G's off the edge a little, but that's okay. We can live with that. All right, so that is all the stamping on this one. Now, before I glue this on, I'm actually going to come in with my Wink of Stella and add some sparkle to my embossed snowflakes on here. So I'm just really quickly just brushing on the embossed raised snowflake images just to add a little sparkle. I'm not really trying to make sure I hit the entire snowflake. I just want to add a little bit of shimmer to kind of accentuate the pattern. And I mean, honestly, who doesn't love a Christmas card that sparkles and shines, right? And because I'm me and I like lots of shimmer, I'm going to add some flicky flicky as well to get that extra level of shimmer all the way across my card. And I just love, I love this DSP, but I love it even more when it sparkles. All right, so we're gonna let that dry. We're gonna go ahead and glue on our sentiment. Now, when I'm gluing this on, I'm actually gonna be really strategic in placing my mini dimensionals. Because I have this piece of twine, I don't want my sentiment to kind of be uneven when I stick it over top of the twine. So I'm going to adhere my dimensionals. Look at Heather, I'm starting at the edge. Are you proud of me? I'm going to adhere my dimensionals along the top and bottom edges so that my twine can kind of lie in between and help that piece to lie flat. So we're going to get rid of our backings and we're going to pop this on, and I'm just going to kind of like, as I'm putting it down, just allow that twine to kind of nestle in between there a little bit. Okay, I need one more under there. I'm actually going to grab my, take your pick to tuck one in there. So we'll just tuck this guy in. And again, I'm going to nudge it right up to the twine. And there we go. Okay. All right. So our last, well, not last, but our next touch is to tie a bow. So I have just an itty bitty scrap here. This is what, 6 inches? 6 inches of braided linen. And I'm going to make my 2 loops. Okay. So I've just made my 2 little bunny ears. I'm taking my left loop, crossing it over the right, and bringing it through the little hole. And there we have our bow. And then again, it's just a matter of playing with your loops until you get them. That's not very even. Let's do that again. You just want to get your loops even and have relatively even tails so that you can have a nice looking bow. That's better. That's a little bit more even. Let's make those a teensy bit smaller because I don't want to cover up my sentiment. And then I'm going to trim a little bit off my tails. And then I always like to distress the tails just a little bit. This twine looks really cool, or this trim, I guess, looks really cool when you just kind of pull it apart and relax the fibers a little bit. Just adds a little extra level of texture. So we're going to just glue that onto the corner of our sentiment. So just press the knot into a glue dot and just pop that on just like that. Okay, now we're going to add some more bling. I have 2 different embellishments here. So these little gold stars are actually from the Most Wonderful Time product medley. Now I'm going to be featuring that later on this fall, but these are included in that product medley. So we're going to use just one of them at the top of our tree, because every Christmas tree needs a star, right? Or an angel. So we'll pop that on there. Make sure it's straight. And then I have some of our real red rhinestone basic jewels. So these are just red. That's the only color you get. And you get like a whack load of them. How many are on here? I don't even know. 220. It's a lot of rhinestones. This is actually my second pack that I have started. But they last you a really long time. Okay. So we are going to just place our little red rhinestones kind of like ornaments on our tree. So if you're like me, You let your family help with decorating your Christmas tree, and then you go back and rearrange it afterwards. Who else does that? Am I the only one who is just a wee bit particular about what their tree looks like? Maybe I'm the only one. And you know what? Interestingly, my family never seems to notice that I have totally rearranged all of the ornaments on the tree. It just drives me crazy to be sitting there, you know, relaxing with a glass of wine in the evening in front of the fire and looking at ornaments that are not even. It just drives me nuts. So it's far better for everyone if I just take it upon myself to rearrange everything, and then everybody's happier. Right? Right. All right, so there we go. We have our lovely red ornaments, and there is our sparkly, easy, quick Christmas card. You like that one? Now on the inside of my sample here, I added a Whisper white panel, and I did some stamping with the stamp set. I stamped in Shaded Spruce, and I used a couple of the different tree images, and then I added a sentiment from the Itty Bitty Christmas set for the inside, stamped in Pretty Peacock. Okay, so there is card number 1. That was our quick and easy. So we're going to get that out of the way. And we're going to bring in card number 2. Let's set this aside for a minute. Card number 2 is this elegant beauty. Now, I don't know about you, but I love the look of embossed foil cardstock. I just love it. And this brushed foil is simply stunning when it's embossed. So this is a piece of the gold brushed foil. In the pack, you get gold, bronze, and copper. And it's just gorgeous. Now, on its own, it's pretty, but look at it when we add the embossing. So I'm going to show you just what a wow it is. I wanted to actually do the embossing. I normally do it ahead of time, but this is just such a wow. I couldn't resist showing it to you. So to emboss with this one, this is one of our 3D embossing folders. So we need our platform. That's number 1. Where's my folder? I had it here. There it is. And we're going to add our gorgeous metallic to our 3D folder, and you kind of want to think about how much of the trees you want to see. Okay, so I want to have my trees fairly close to the top because I'm going to have a bunch of stuff at the bottom that's going to cover up some of that embossing. So I just want to make sure that that's in there. Anytime we are using our embossing folders, we always want to put the oh, there it is. We always want to put the fold in first. Okay, and then we're going to finish. The last thing we put on is plate number 4, which is the embossing plate. Okay, so we're going to roll that through. And you are going to see, this is such a wow. Like, honestly, look at how gorgeous that is. Like, honestly, this could be your card. Slap a sentiment on there, and it's just so stunning. So this embossing folder is called Evergreen Forest. If you have not got this one yet, you need to put that on your next order because it is fantastic. Fantastic. All right, so let's get that out of the way and bring back that beautiful embossed cardstock. And we are going to layer a couple of things onto that before we put it onto our card base. So here I have some of the Gilded Autumn DSP. So this has fall imagery on the back, but I love this mint macaron in gold. So this is cut to 1.5 by 5.25. So 1.5 by 5.25 inches. And then I have a piece of very vanilla cardstock that is 1 5/8 by 5.25. So it's going to be just a narrow 1/16 of an inch border at the top and bottom and no border at the edges. Okay, so I'm going to use just a little bit of the liquid glue just so that I can wiggle that into position. So we'll throw that on there. Oh, sure, Zelia, I can make you some if you'd like, or better yet, I can show you how to make them. All right, so I've got my DSP on. Okay, now before I glue this on to my gorgeous embossed background, I need to build myself a pine tree or spruce tree. I don't know. I guess these are spruce. They're kind of triangular, right? Spruce trees are triangular. All right, so these are 2 more die cuts. So this is mint macaron, just the solid tree. And then this one is, again, the very vanilla. So this is the more detailed tree. Now on the back of this one, I have added some of the adhesive sheets to make it super quick and easy to layer these. So I'm going to just get my backing started here, if it wants to work. Sometimes it's easier to do it with the end of your pokey tool to get that started. Oh my goodness, it's going to be one of those days, isn't it? There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to peel my backing off, and most of those little bits are going to come off with the backing, so I don't need to worry about poking them all. There's just one little hold out there, so we're going to get rid of that. And then we're going to layer that onto the solid tree. So it's just a matter, now I'm going to line up, start at the trunk. I like to line up the trunk first and then kind of work my way up the tree. Okay, and they layer quite nicely. And when it's layered, it kind of looks like a tree with snow on it, right? Isn't that pretty? Okay, so now this is going to get glued onto our beautiful gold backing. Okay, I'm not going to worry about trying to anchor my tree. I'm going to have a floating tree, but it's not going to float for long because we're going to anchor it with this one. Okay, so I'm going to add just a little bit of tape to my tree, and we're going to stick that on. I kind of did it between these two taller trees when I was building my card, my sample. Okay, so that's going to go on like that. Next, I'm ready to go ahead and add my DSP strip. Okay, so that's going to go right along the bottom. It's about 1/4 of an inch up from the bottom. And I just noticed that tree looks like it's leaning to one side. So we're going to just adjust that a little bit. Thank goodness for foil. It makes it easy to peel adhesive off. There we go. Now it's straight. Okay, so we're going to add some adhesive to the back of our cardstock strip here. And I'm throwing it around. And then this is going to get stuck to the front of our emboss panel about 1/4 of an inch up from the bottom edge. So just right across there like that. Okay, and with this, I always like to burnish it from the back side. When you're working with foil, if you have any kind of stickiness on your fingers, it will show up on the foil. So I always like to burnish from the back, and that keeps the front of your card nice and clean. Okay, now we are ready to go ahead and layer that on our card base. So the card base is thick, very vanilla cardstock, 5.5 by 8.5 inches, scored in the middle at 4 1/4. Isn't it a gorgeous folder, Jen? I absolutely love this embossing folder. It is, and honestly, the picture in the catalog does it zero justice. You have to see it in action to really appreciate how beautiful it is. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and layer that just like that. So we're going to add a little bit of tape to the back. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put my tape on here because I don't want to squish my embossing. So I'm going to put my tape on the card base. I don't always do this. Actually, I don't normally do that. But I don't want to squish that gorgeous embossed image by pressing with the tape. So we are going to center that on there just like that. Okay, we're starting to see our seed emerge. So then we have a couple more trees to build. So again, this is the narrow, skinny, solid tree, and then we have 2 of the detailed trees. So same thing here. I have added adhesive sheet to the back. So we're going to peel that off and get rid of those last little holdout bits. And again, just build from the bottom up. So you just layer your trunk and work your way up like that. Okay, so that guy is going to go over there, and then one more. Get rid of our backing, and one more. There we go. We'll pop this onto here. Now this one I want to be a little bit shorter just for visual interest. I didn't want them all at the same height, because if you ever look at a forest, it's not very often that you see all the trees the same height, right? So get rid of that little bit that's stuck back there. There we go. Okay, so this guy I'm going to trim off just a little bit, like, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch maybe, if that. Okay, and he's going to go a little bit shorter along over to the right. Okay, so this one is going to go on with some dimensionals. We'll use some full size and some minis. So I'll put a couple of full size and then a mini up at the top. And we'll get rid of our backings and just pop this on sort of to the right, or sorry, to the left of the tree and behind there. Okay. And then this one is going to go on here like this, but we're not going to glue it on yet because we need to do our sentiment. So we're going to use that same Season's Greetings sentiment. As I find it. There it is. And this time we're going to heat emboss. Now I don't often heat emboss in live videos because I don't like people to have to listen to the noise, but it just worked too well on this card. So you're going to have to put up with the noise. So I figure I may as well give you some heat embossing tips. Hello, Donna Pierce. How are you? So when you are heat embossing, the key to success is using the embossing buddy. Now, sadly, I do not understand why Stampin' Up discontinued the embossing buddy. I know, tears of sadness. cries of horror. You can no longer get this from me. However, if you don't have one and you want to do heat embossing, you need to go and get one, okay? You can get them in all sorts of different crafty locations. I'm not going to tell you, but pick a craft store, you'll be able to find one, okay? So we're just going to brush that along our cardstock. Now this is just a 1/2 inch wide strip of very vanilla cardstock. And then you need to stamp with sticky ink. So we're going to use Versamark. This is just a watermark ink. It's clear ink, but it's very sticky. So we're going to go ahead and stamp. And again, this is going to be one of those cross your fingers and hope kind of things with the Versamark. Oh, that wasn't too bad. Now this is showing blue because I still had some pretty Peacock ink on there, just so you know. Normally that stamp's clear. Okay. All right. So then I'm going to bring in just a tray to catch the stray powder and some gold Stampin' Emboss powder. So I'm going to sprinkle my stamped greeting. Okay, and you're going to see that show up really nicely, but it's kind of dull and gross, right? And if I brush that, it's all going to come off. So we are not done. The key to heat embossing is the heat. If you don't heat it, your image will not stay. Okay, so let's get that out of the way and put it somewhere it's not going to spill. And then we're going to bring in our noisy embossing tool. So when we are heat embossing, we want to make sure that we are not scorching the embossing powder. So you can actually overheat it and it will get dull and it won't be nice and shiny. Okay, so we're going to turn this on and you're going to notice I'm going to start at one end and gradually work my way across. I'm not going to do the blow dryer thing. Okay, doing the blow dryer thing is the best way to scorch your embossing powder. So here we go. There we go. Sorry, I had to flip it there. My fingers were burning. But that's it. Now, isn't that pretty? See the shimmer on that gold? It's just so lovely. And it's raised. I'm not sure how well that shows on the camera, but it is raised. It has texture. Okay, so that is our sentiment strip. I'm going to trim a little bit off of the one end. And then I'm going to bring in my, I can't remember what this is called. Pick a label, pick a something. It's in the annual catalog. Can't think of it off the top of my head. I'm going to use this end. So I'm going to slide my little 2-inch strip in as far as it'll go and punch. And I'm going to get a decorative. Oh, I didn't slide it in far enough. Let's try that again. Did that not go in all the way? There we go. That's in all the way. Yes, it is. Okay, let's try that again. And we will get a much nicer end. There we go. We get a decorative end on the end of our strip. Okay, so the key is to make sure it is pushed in all the way, as you can see. All right, so now we can adhere our tree to the end of this little banner. So I'm going to trim a little bit of the excess off and put a little bit of tape on the ends. And then what I like to do to make sure that this is going to go on straight, I'll lay it on my grid paper so it is straight along a grid line. And then I will add my tree, and again, making sure my tree is straight along a grid line. Okay, so that when I go to glue this on, I know my tree is going to be straight and my sentiment's going to be straight. So again, we're going to add some dimensionals to pop this up. So we'll kind of go 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we'll get rid of our backings. And then this is going to pop on to the right of that tree in the background. Again, I'm going to make sure the bottom of my tree is lined up with the bottom of my card. We don't want floating trees. And we just want to make sure that our sentiment is nice and straight, just like that. Okay, isn't that pretty? It's a really simple card. There's not a lot to it, but that gold embossed foil is just amazing. Amazing. All right, now on the inside, I didn't add a sentiment yet, but I did add just an extra strip of the DSP just to tie that in a little bit. You could certainly stamp as well. You could add some of the gold foil. You could do whatever you like, but there is card number 2. All right. Okay, time to move on to a fun fold. So I was playing around a little bit with fun fold cards on the weekend. And I came across someone who had done a box card. A box card is simply sort of a diorama card. It's this part here, okay? But then I thought, well, if somebody gets that in an envelope, it folds flat, Okay, the box card folds flat to fit in an envelope, but I thought, is anybody going to know to stand that up? They're just going to kind of look at it and wonder what the heck it is. And it's a little bit unstable because you really only have a 1/2 inch wide piece to stand it. So I thought, well, it needs to be adhered to a card base so that when they pull it out of the envelope, it just kind of pops into shape and then they can stand it up. Okay, so this gives some really cool dimension. It's a box card, sometimes referred to as a diorama, but it gives you that 3D effect and still has a spot where you can write a sentiment. Okay, it does fold flat to fit into an envelope. Okay, all right, so let's show you how to do this. This is actually way simpler than it looks. So essentially, you're going to need a full sheet of cardstock. Okay, so a full sheet of 8.5 by 11. This is our card base. It's 5.5 by 8.5, scored in the middle at 4.25. Basic card base. Okay, we'll set that aside for now. This piece is a little bit smaller. It's 5.25 by 8.5. So it's 1/4 inch narrower. If I put this on top, you'll see it's 1/4 inch narrower than my card base. Okay. Then I put it in with the long side at the top into my scoring tool, and I scored at 1/2, 1, 4.5, and 5. That's it. 1/2, 1, 4.5, and 5. So simple. Okay. All right. So then we are going to fold everything inwards. So I'm going to take my bone folder and fold all of my score lines, because we are making a box, right? So we want all of our pieces to kind of fold inwards. And you're going to see in a minute that that's how that's going to work, like that. Okay. Now, before we do anything, we have to cut our window and add our DSP. So here I have a piece of, you got it, Plaid Tidings DSP. It is my very favorite. And we are going to, actually, we're going to die cut, or we're going to adhere it to this panel here. Okay, so the one that has the little lip that is going to fold under to create our box. Now, this is cut to 5.25 by 3.5. Yes, 5.25 by 3.5 inches. So we're going to go ahead and glue that onto that panel before we die cut, because it is so much easier to die cut both at once. Now, don't tell anybody I told you that, because technically our dies are only intended to cut one layer, but you can kind of get away with this because the 2 layers here, because 1 layer is DSP. Okay. All right. So we have our DSP glued on. I'm going to bring back my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And for this, I used, let me just grab my platform here. I used one of the stitch nested label dies. So I'm going to put down my platform. I'm going to put my thin die adapter. I'm going to put my magnetic self-healing mat, and then my cardstock with the DSP. Now this is going to be extra tricky because I have to try and line this up while I'm looking at it sideways. So I want to try and get my die centered and straight if I can. Let's try that. Okay, and then I'm going to add my cutting plate on top, number 3, and we're going to roll that through. And you are going to see that cuts really well. It's just this thing gets nested in there. And this piece is actually already adhered, so you can make a really cute little gift tag out of that. So don't throw that out, okay? All right, so that is our window. Just get this out of the way. And I'm going to trim this because my die tore my cardstock just a little bit, just to clean that up. There we go. Okay, so there is my box. We are going to adhere. We're going to put adhesive. I'm going to just use some seal. Actually, I'll use Seal Plus. I've got it here. Along that first little panel, that first little bit there, that's going to tuck in to adhere our box. Okay. Now, the easiest way to stick this down to make sure it's straight is to fold that panel with the adhesive on, and then fold this closed, just like you're closing up a card. Okay. And then you get it nice and straight and even. Okay. So there is my box. Done and done. So simple. All right, now we're going to do a little bit of stamping for the panel that goes inside the box. So this is a piece of Whisper White cardstock. It is just 1/8 of an inch smaller than this. So this was 3.5 inches wide. So this is 3 3/8. This was 4 1/4. So this is this was 5 1/4. So this is 5 1/8. Okay, so 5 1/8 by 3 3/8. Okay, so then we're gonna bring in a couple of stamps from the stamp set and some old olive ink. So I'm going to start with the larger tree, and these are, well, I'm going to stamp one here on my grid paper so you can see it, because we're going to do some stamped off images first. But it's almost like one of the dynamic stamps, because you have some areas that are shaded darker and some that are lighter. So I've stamped off once, and I'm going to stamp just a couple of trees stamped off to start, to kind of create my background. Actually, I'm going to bring in my smaller one before I add. So we'll add a couple of smaller trees, just like that. I'll do one little guy kind of down here. Okay, so those are all stamped off once. Then I'm going to bring in my full strength tree and stamp that full strength on there. And again, we're just building a scene, right? There's not really any wrong way to do this. The forest is the forest, and trees kind of grow wherever they happen to grow. So there's not really a wrong way to create a scene of trees. Okay. Can I lower my camera? You can't see what I'm doing. Oh, here. How's that? Let me move that up. Sorry about that, Julie. Thank you for mentioning that. I pulled the grid paper closer to me and didn't realize that I was out of camera range. All right. How's that? Is that better? Let me just wait and you guys can tell me if that's better. Can you see now? Okay, I'm hoping you guys can see. All right, so there is my forest. Okay, so stamped off trees in the background, full strength trees in the foreground. Okay, all right. So now we are going to adhere that inside our box. So the easiest way to do that is to just add a little bit of adhesive. I'm using liquid glue because, again, that gives me the wiggle time to kind of slide it into place. So I'm adding just a little bit of liquid glue, and I'm going to slide that in and then just kind of set it into place. And I can kind of wiggle it around until I get it exactly where I want it. And then I just press the card closed to burnish it. Okay, so far so good. All right, now let's build the base of our card before we do any more decorating. So I'm gonna bring back my other large piece of crumb cake. So again, this was 5.5 by 8.5 inches, scored at 4 1/4. So we are going to fold that in half along the score line. Thanks for letting me know you can see that now, you guys. All right, and then we have a piece of more Plaid Tidings DSP. It's 5 1/4 by 4. Actually, I lied. It's 5.5 by 4 1/4. It's the same size as the panel, the front panel of my card. Okay, it's exactly the same size. So we're gonna go ahead and glue that on. Now, the reason I didn't leave a border on this one is because of the size of my little box. Okay, I still wanted to be able to see some of the DSP. And if I had made it to allow for a border around the DSP, I would not have been able to see much of it. So we'll just pop that on there like that. Okay, and then we're ready to go ahead and adhere our box. So to adhere the box, again, I'm going to use some Stampin' Seal, or sorry, Seal Plus rather, and I'm going to put my adhesive just on the box part. I'm not worrying about this part, right, because that part is going to pop up and down. So I'm putting my adhesive right here. So I'm going to put a couple of strips of the Seal Plus. Okay, and then when I go to glue this on, when this is pressed flat, this is actually sized to 5 1/4 by 4. So I'm going to center this. Now let me make sure I'm centering this the way I want it. I'm going to center this on the front of my panel here as it is folded flat. And again, you can use the lines on your plaid paper to help with that. And then when it pops up, you have a little bit of a space at the bottom. You know, this reminded me of when I was looking at it. It reminded me of looking out a camper window. That's what it reminded me of. So that is your box there. Okay. All right. So now we are going to build our scene. We're going to stamp our Mr. Moose and do a little teeny bit of coloring. So we have our moose from the Merry Moose bundle and a little bit of early espresso ink. Just some scrap crumb cake cardstock. So again, I'm going to go ahead and stamp my moose. Okay. And then I'm going to punch it out using the coordinating moose punch. So we'll just slide him in there and center him, pop him out. And then I wanted his antlers to be a little bit darker. So we are going to color using the light soft suede. Okay, so I'm using just the brush tip. I'm not worrying about doing any kind of shading. Now you are going to find when you color on the crumb cake cardstock that it does bleed a little bit. So you don't want to get right up to the edge of the image because it will bleed. Oh, and having said that, I just went outside the lines. Oh, well, it happens to all of us. So there's one antler and then our other antler. Just done a bit of color. I'm, like I said, not worrying about shading on this guy. I just wanted to create some contrast between the antlers and the body. So there we go. And again, I'm just going to let that bleed in to fill in that one spot there. Okay. So we have our moose done. And then I have some die cut trees. And I just want to show you what I did with the trees because it was kind of bugging me. I had just the green trees initially. So I was going to put just the green trees on like this. But it was bothering me that the trunk of the tree was green because in real life, the trunk of the tree is not green. The trunk of the tree is brown. So I cut just the very bottom of each tree out of crumb cake cardstock. And then I just kind of trimmed up from the bottom. And I'm going to cut off the green trunk. So I'm going to cut the green trunk off the bottom of this large tree. And then I'm going to replace it with the crumb cake one. All right. And that is just simply because I didn't like the green trunk. Sorry, it's just me. I'm odd. So I'm going to add just a little bit of liquid glue there. Again, the liquid glue is just to allow me to position this exactly the way I want it. And you just kind of layer it over top of, or sorry, underneath rather. And there I have a tree with a green or a brown trunk. Right? Works. Okay. So then I'm going to do the same thing with one of the smaller ones. So same deal. I'm going to trim off those little bits. I need the color lifter. I do have a color lifter actually somewhere, Krista. The amount that bled wasn't so bad, so I'm not going to worry about it, but you are right. The color lifter will lift that out. The only thing I find when I'm coloring on colored cardstock is that the color lifter does still leave a bit of a mark. So I don't use the color lifter all that often when I'm using colored cardstock. Okay, so I'm going to trim, oh, there it is. Okay, so I'm going to trim off my green trunk here. And again, on just the tip of my brown trunk, I'm going to apply a little bit of adhesive. And we're going to stick that on just like that. Again, so that our tree has a more realistic looking trunk. Okay, now this little guy, I'm actually going to cut the green trunk off, but I'm not going to add a brown trunk because I wanted it to be shorter. I didn't want to see the trunk on that one. All right, so we'll get rid of all of these little bits here and we can build our scene. So we're going to bring in our larger tree and it's going to kind of tuck right in that corner of the window. Okay, so you have to be really careful when you are applying your adhesive here because you don't want to put adhesive on this part of the tree where it's going to extend over the window and stick your card shut. So I'm going to put just a little bit of liquid glue along this side of the tree and then just a little bit along the top. Oh, I did on the wrong side. Look at that. You guys, it's one of those days, I tell you. Teaching in a pandemic is not agreeing with me. My brain is fried. Okay, let's try that again. Now it's on the right side. And I'm actually going to add a little bit to the trunk as well. And we're going to pop that on right along that edge. Now I can press this flat to press that into place. Okay, now my fingers are all sticky from all the glue I just rubbed off. Okay, so there we go. That's gonna pop right off of there. Stick, you guys. Now I'm gonna tuck my little moosey in behind. So he's gonna kind of be peeking out from behind that tree. Okay, so again, we're gonna add just a bit of adhesive to his legs. Right here, so we're gonna tuck him in behind, and he's gonna be kind of walking along the bottom of our box there. So again, we can close the card to press all of these pieces into place. Okay, you don't have to try and do it while the box is holding its shape. And then I'm gonna add a glue dot as soon as I find what I did with them to tuck in behind the branch that's overlapping the moose. So we're gonna tuck a glue dot just in here to secure that. Okay, and now the moose is nice and secure. He's not going anywhere. Okay, so that is one side, and then we're gonna add a couple more trees. So we're gonna do our other tree that has the brown trunk, the smaller tree, on this side. So same deal, and this time I'm not gonna screw it up. We're gonna add a little bit of liquid glue just along the side that is going to overlap. So we'll put this guy on here, just like that. And again, we're gonna close the card to press that into place. Hi, Martine, how are you? Thanks, Heather, you like this one? All right, and then we have this little guy, and I wanted this guy to be popped up a little bit. So I actually used some mini dimensionals and then trimmed my minis in half to get them small enough. Now you could certainly use the foam adhesive sheets if you wanted, but I didn't want the whole tree I didn't want it to have that much dimension. So I'm just taking my mini dimensionals, cutting them in half, and then I can apply them strategically on my die cut. And they are small enough, and I just have to think about, yep, we're good, where this is gonna go to make sure that my adhesive is where it needs to be. So again, we'll add another little one in here. And I need one super skinny little bit for right at the top. So for this, whenever I need really skinny little bits, I like to use the edges of my dimensional sheets, because you can trim them to any size you like. And that is going to go just over a little bit to the right and pressed into place. Okay, so there's my little forest scene. We're going to stamp a sentiment. So again, we're going to use that same Season's Greetings. As soon as I grab it from the other bin here, and we're going to stamp that in the Early Espresso. So we're going to just grab our Early Espresso ink and stamp that. Hi, Bonnie, how are you? Oh, I'm so glad you got your moose. Well, here's a card for you to make with your moose sets. All right, so there is our sentiments. And I'm going to pull in my tailored tag punch to do my little banner trick. So we're going to just slide this into the top of the punch and then back it off a wee bit and punch to create our banner. Super quick and easy way to create a banner end. And then that is going to get adhered inside our window. Okay, now we're going to trim off a little bit of the excess again. And we'll put a bit of tape on the end. And then all you're going to do, make sure that that's not extending past. You're going to position this where you want it to go. Okay, and close your card. So again, I'm going to put this up high enough so you can see. You're going to position that where you want it to go and then just close your card to press it in place. Okay, super easy. Just remember, you can always press it flat to adhere stuff. Okay, so there is our scene, and then the last little touch is just a little star for the top of one of our trees. These are from the Trimming the Town suite. They are the embellishments from that suite, and they're perfectly adorable. And I just love the little touch of the little star on the one tree. Isn't that cute? So fun. All right, let me clean up my mess here. I got adhesives everywhere and all kinds of bits and bobs. All right. So let me bring back all the samples. Now, again, on the inside of my sample one, I added a Whisper White panel, stamped some more trees, same method that I used on the background panel, and added, this sentiment is actually from the Mary Moose stamp set. Okay, same stamp set where I got that guy from. So let me bring back all three again so you can see them all together. So we have 1, 2, and 3. So simple, stepped up, and fun folds using the In the Pine stamp set and coordinating dies. Okay? Oh, you love this for your redneck family. I'm actually going to send this to my parents, Krista, because they live up north and they have moose in their backyard. So they will love this particular card. So that's awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed these projects. And I will be back again next week with another episode of Tuesday Live at 5. Thanks so much. Bye for now.